Welcome everyone to the April board meeting of Ignite CDA. If you'd all stand and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, normally would be public comment, but due to the COVID-19 issues and the idiosyncrasies with video and audio conferencing, all public comment will be done by email. You can contact the Ignite CDA website at www.ignitecda.org/contact, and please provide any public contact to that email address. Thanks. Next will be the approval of minutes from the March board meeting. I'll entertain
I'd like to make a motion to approve the March 18th, 2020 board meeting minutes.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion, corrections, or? All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed say nay. Thank you. Motion carries. Committee report. Commissioner Arman, Finance Committee.
Okay, this will be different. First of all, the Lake District balance sheet. The Lake District experienced a $150,479 increase in cash assets from February month end. The receivables due from the Atlas District, $884 increase from February month end, reflecting the Atlas District share of G&A costs. Due to the River District, $7,065 is fiscal year 19 audit adjustment for payroll. Taxes received $2,848 increase for fiscal year 19 audit adjustment. On the fixed assets, CIP Park Drive line item $8,274 decrease down to zero for the fiscal year 19 audit adjustment. Building and sites $1,198,416 decrease fiscal year audit adjustment, and accumulated depreciation of $164,561 decrease for fiscal year 2019 audit adjustment. Other assets, Lake District 2016 series note reserve account increased by $80 for the month of March. The liabilities and fund balance, the bond 2017 note $557,070 increase due to a final note draw. All other liability parameters are either unchanged or normal for the month, including a 2% credit to the due to the yards line item due to the county increment check received in March. The Lake District P&L, the Lake District received $24,588 in tax increment revenue from the county in March. Agency funded initiatives, the Atlas Waterfront Project, $416,264. The breakdown of that was Welsh Comer Team, $47,124, and Tiege La Riviere Contracting, $369,140. Insurance, $3,180 payment for ICRIM premium payment. Property divestitures, net $31,408 reflects the last Park Avenue or North Park Drive lot sale that was done in December of this past year. All other P&L expenditure line items are in line with the normal operating month. Moving on to the River District, the balance sheet, the assets. The River District experienced a $144,645 decrease in cash assets for February month end. The Atlas deposit receivable, $16,000 increase due to additional loan funds to the Atlas District for the mill site project work. Taxes receivable, $5,776 decrease for fiscal year 2019 audit adjustment. The liabilities and fund balance due to the Lake District, $7,065 for fiscal year 2019 audit payroll adjustment. All liability parameters either unchanged or normal for the month, including the 2% credit to the yards line item due to the March county increment check. The River District P&L, the River District received $10,871 in tax increment revenue from the county in March. Agency funded initiatives, Atlas Phase 1 Waterfront Project, $126,699. Breakdown, Welsh Comer Team, $66,607. Tiege La Riviere Contracting, $60,092. Insurance, the payment to ICRIP for $1,511. All other P&L expenditure line items are in line with normal operating month, with 45% of G&A cost share expenses. Lastly, the Atlas District balance sheet. The Atlas District experienced a $33 increase in cash assets from February month end due to additional loan funds from the River District. Liabilities and fund balance due to the River District, $16,000 increase due to additional loan funds received from the River District. Due to the Lake District, $884 increase for G&A costs. The P&L, the Atlas District received $0 in tax increment revenue from the county in March. Agency funded initiatives, Stimson Mill Site Atlas Project Phase 1, $15,967 to the Welsh-Comer team. The insurance for the ICRIM payment was $168. All other P&L expenditure line items are in line the normal operating month with 5% G&A cost expenses. That is the financial report for this month.
Thank you, sir.
Moving on to payables. First payable is to Elam and Burke, total of $3,329.60. The breakdown of this. General legal counsel, legislative issues was $1,160. Lake URD Midtown project and district termination budgeting process, $280. And then the River District URD Atlas project, $1,889.60. Once again, for a total of $3,329.60. Second payment was to Holly Troxel for $6,787.50. Breakdown, general legal counsel, $4,349.50. The Lake District Midtown project, $1,376. And the River District Atlas project, $1,062, once again, for a total of $6,787.50. Third payment was for the fiscal year 2019 audit adjustment for the River District to the Lake District. It was a payroll adjustment, $7,065. And the Atlas Mill Site initiatives, total funding payout for this month was $649,087.01. Breakdown was the following. Welsh-Comer team, amendment number 5, regulatory and public space planning, $2,954.64. Welsh-Comer team, amendment 6, regulatory public space planning, $7,537.50. Welsh-Comer team, amendment number 7, waterfront construction services, $54,200. Welsh-Comer team, amendment number 8, phase 1 infrastructure design, final plat, $66,997.50. Welsh-Comer team, amendment number 9, phase 1 Heartland A&E and DDA costs were $17,105.66. And then the large one was T. River Bureau Construction for the waterfront, Atlas waterfront project, $500,291.71 for a total of $649,087.01. All total payables for the month was $666,269.11. So that is the payables for the month.
Thanks, Mick. I'll entertain a motion to approve the financials and payables.
I would move to approve the monthly financials and the payables.
Second, Commissioner Mandel.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Thank you all. That motion carries. Next up, Parking Commission. Commissioner Jordan.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have much to report. We didn't have a quorum, and we're hoping to hold a meeting in May.
Thank you. Short. Tony Burns, Executive Director's Report.
Could we just take a second to confirm which commissioners are on the phone where we can't see their name? Jim, I know you're on. Dan, are you on? Doesn't sound like it.
Everybody else. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First up is Midtown Ventures LLC agreement to negotiate exclusively a third amendment proposal As I shared with you, John Butler, who's here this evening with Midtown Ventures LLC, has requested that the board consider extending the agreement to negotiate exclusively period for up to an additional year due to certain conditions, involving the project area as well as this COVID-19 pandemic issue that we're facing as a community. And I've invited John to come and visit with the board to kind of chat about the extension request. So John, if you could come up to the podium.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Where do I start? I don't know that we need a year, but we can talk about that. When we met March 4th, you guys approved a revised plan. So since then, we've been working with the builder and the architect to get construction plans and costs and stuff. And honestly, in the last 2 to 3 weeks, we haven't been able to do much. I look at this as May, almost May 1st. Who knows how long this COVID thing's gonna, I don't think May's optimistic, June, May, who knows? But, I mean, who does know? I mean, I'm optimistic about the area. From a real estate standpoint, I'm getting a lot of calls from people out of state, but they just aren't being able to come here. It's affected rents, I know. People aren't being able to make rent payments and things like that. So I want to make a really good business decision. In the meantime, we have moved forward with the architect to get construction plans and try to get costs so we know where we're at. It wasn't real positive initially. We've been doing some value engineering to get to that point. I think we'll get there. I'm committed to moving forward with this, but I just feel that I would like to have an extension until at least September 1st. The business climate, as you know, with business activity, and so I just don't know how long this is going to last, and I don't think anybody does. So I don't want to belabor it any longer. I mean, I appreciate your patience. I think we have a good plan in place. I've committed funds to get the construction drawings completed so we can get more firm bids on the project. But I just don't feel comfortable. Right now, I'm not comfortable saying yeah or no. I've got the agreement from Tony, and I looked through that, and that looks good, but we just need more time. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
So John, did I hear you correctly? You're requesting an extension out to September 1st?
Yeah. And we're working diligently to get things done on our end, but I mean, even at that time, are we going to be able to move forward? I hope so. I hope that's enough time. Right now, we can't.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mayor?
The economic climate, obviously, at this point in time is pretty unknown. I think that John's request is reasonable. So I would like to make a motion that due to the current unknown economic climate that I would move to extend the Midtown Ventures Agreement to September 1st of 2020. So I'd make that
And I
motion.
will second Jim.
Moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or comments?
Commissioner Hoskins, Chairman, would we want to move it to after the meeting in September? Because September 1st kind of leaves us making it difficult to do anything if we can't meet that date, because it's right in between our two meetings.
Do you have that date handy?
I'm looking for it. 16th is the meeting.
I would amend my motion to say September 16th of 2020 to extend that.
I want to say Tony's been great to work with. I'm committed to this project. I hope you understand. So,
Thanks, John.
and I'd be happy to show up at the next meetings, give you a progress report. if you
Progress
want me to.
reports? Okay,
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Okay.
The person that seconded, was that Jim? Jim, do you
Yes.
want to second that amendment?
Second.
Any further discussion?
That amendment?
Any discussion?
This is Brad. All I would say is I wasn't comfortable with a year, but I think September is fine. So I think that's good. And if John would keep us updated, that would be great. With John, the best of luck.
Thanks, Brad.
I agree, Brad.
Thank you.
No more discussion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Thanks, and thanks, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Second item under my report is just an Atlas project update. I'd like to invite Phil Boyd up to the podium to share an update overview with the board at this time.
Thank you, Tony, Chairman Hoskins, and board members.
Mr. Boyd?
I think look at my presentations coming up here. Thank you. So I'll get down to here. Okay. So I'll give you a little bit of an update. I also want to talk about the La Riviere contract transfer request that was presented at the city council meeting last Tuesday. And Tony wanted me to just brief the board on it. It'll eventually come back to the board again, but he wanted me to brief this afternoon on it. And then Bill Greenwood, I think the board received a letter from Bill about the use of the contingency funding and the project savings, and Bill will come up and talk about that in part 2 of this presentation. I will give you an update. Starting with this, I routinely show this graphic, and if you pay close attention, you'll notice that there's a slight change in this area because it reflects the proposed land uses from the developer that has submitted on these 2 properties, which is, you can see it's a single-family product. So I superimposed in here to try to keep the graphic continually updated. Up in this area, it's still intended to be multifamily. The developer submitted on that one. And in this area, it's also considered to be single-family, like the area down in here. So I just provided that to the board to kind of keep a graphic update as we progress with the development. Project progress, it's moving along out there nicely. The stuff that's been recently completed, in addition to things that I've talked about before, include the water access seat steps. For the most part, those are completed. The storm sewer and water lines are also completed. The ongoing and upcoming work includes the building, the irrigation systems, and we're going to start working on the repairing, or the contractors are going to start working on the riparian landscaping. The Riverstone to Atlas connecting trails are still moving along. The landscaping retaining walls. You're going to start to see a lot of concrete flat work happen, and Suzanne Road is going to start to really shape up, curb and gutter, and you'll start to again see that happening, the crossing at the Prairie Trail as well. Kind of the typical photograph I showed you guys always before and current. This was taken just a couple of days ago. We do a routine flight every month and kind of try to schedule it just before the board meeting on a sunny day. Looks pretty barren in here, which, as you guys know, the majority of this area is development area. The waterfront park is down in this area, but you can see the Rockery Wall is completed. The trails are starting to shape up in this area, and you can see some of the upper landscaping walls. Looking in the other direction, this is in December, and again, doesn't look, there's not much happening here. I'll draw your attention to where the restrooms are, where Bill's maintenance, the park's maintenance storage building is over in here. One of the things that Bill's going to talk about is the unsuitable material we encountered, and you can actually see it being mined in this area, and you notice how black it is. This is actually the end of the parking lot in this area, and you generally don't want to put the parking lot on unsuitable soils like that. And then here's the current picture that was taken a couple days ago. There's the storage building. It's getting roofed here in the next couple days. This formwork that you see right here, we call it the food truck wall, because this is an area of the park where food trucks can go, but they're shielded from the parking area in here. This whole area is the park, and it's isolated from the parking area, obviously. This is the restroom area and the big green space in here. And this is along the area we call the beach. This is another example. You guys have seen this photograph before of the unsuitable material that's being mined out of here. That was a big part of the expense that we encountered, that the project encountered, and it's all being hauled out of there. This is what it looks like now, and you can see it's really starting to take shape. I'll start down here in the bottom left-hand corner. This is actually kind of the very edge of the parking lot. And this is a series of bollards in here to obviously keep people from driving into the park. The trail that connects up to Riverstone is in this area. These are the picnic pads, you might remember. This is the accessible picnic pad, and there'll be an accessible route that goes down to the accessible swim area and the accessible kayak launch down in this area. And you can see it's starting to shape up. This is the dog park up in that area, and this is the big beach area. One of the things Bill will talk about as well is the proposed enhancements of the beach. During one of the walkthroughs with the board, there was a lot of discussion about the beach and that it's a very cobbly beach and why can't it be a sandier beach. And part of the proposal you'll see Bill present is talking about making that a sandier beach, which has a certain amount of erosion risk with it. But these are just some shots looking out. This is actually standing on part of the trail, and you can see the rockery wall here. And when the water comes up, it'll be right at the bottom of this rockery wall, but it kind of gives you a sense of the beauty of that area. This is a seat wall that's under construction. The Prairie Trail is right up here, so Riverstone would be just over that area. This is a trail that allows you to come down and access the trail that runs in the Atlas Park. There'll be a dog park fencing access area right here, and this is a seat wall, and this is the area of the dog park. This is a picture of the water access seat steps that we've talked so much about. You guys might recall that was a big popular topic for the community, is getting access to the water. And this is a set of those steps. Again, I kind of use the analogy of Independence Point that are so popular. You can sit up here, but you can crawl down and crawl into the water there. The water will be right about the middle of that bottom step there. But you can see how those shape up. There's another one happening right there. And this is what we call the inlet, where the logs actually used to be drug out of the river, and that's why those pilings are shaped like that. I threw this picture in. It's not very exciting, but it's a demonstration of the unsuitable material that we pulled out of the ground, and you can kind of see the varied color and texture and nature of it. But that's an indication of some of the material that we came across in our work out there. So before I turn it over to Bill, I got to hit one other topic. Before I move on to my next topic, is there any other questions? This might be kind of difficult.
Mr. Chairman, so Phil, if we go back a couple of slides, well, right there, that was good. What are we going to do with all those pilings?
That's a good city
That's
question.
how I say we.
Yeah. We had actually asked the contractor, LaRiviere, to ask their subcontractor, who is going to come in and do the pilings and the dock work, what it would cost to remove those pilings. And it was relatively expensive, about $150 to $200 a piling to pull them out of there. And so at the time, because it was early in the project, and we don't know exactly where we're going to end up with the budget, we just kind of set that aside. They can be removed. I think that we'd want to kind of think carefully about it. One of the advantages of having those pilings there is it keeps boaters from getting close to shore. They're also considered a navigational hazard, so I think that's kind of a policy decision to think about. But it would be probably $150 a piling to pull those out of there.
You do make a good point. It keeps the boats away from the shore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's on the list, the city's requesting the Ignite fund, is the log boom up in this area. Because right now, this beach, and you can see there's no pilings in this area. And so you could literally drive your boat up and beach it here if you would do that with your boat. And one of the proposals that Bill's going to talk about is installing a log boom in that area that does two things. One, it will attenuate the waves, but two, it'll protect the swimmers in this area, much like the NIC beach is protected by the log boom in that area. So that's one of the requests the city's making today, is for Ignite to allow the city to use the savings on the project to fund that log boom.
And then, Phil, if you go back to where you had all that unsuitable material, what do you do with that?
This material, we actually moved to the west end of the site. There's two things that are, we'll say, unsuitable about that material. One, it was really overly saturated because it had a bunch of fine-grained soils in it. And we don't like soils that have a lot of fine-grained component to them. We like the more granular, rocky stuff, we'll call it. So this was fine-grained soil that was overly saturated. And so you can't put anything on top of it because it's just what it sounds like. You sink into it. So we mined it out of here, took it to the west side of the property and kind of spread it out to dry it out. And once it's dried out, we'll resample it to determine if we can remove the finer portion of it and reuse the coarser portion of it. So when we move into the phase 1 development project, it's possible we can reuse this material. But at the time, we would have had to just stop construction and wait for it, pull it out, wait for it to dry out. And that's more expensive than just mining it out of there.
Is there wood product mixed into the soil? Or?
Not really, not in here. It's just, there's bits and pieces of topsoil in it. And it could be that this may not end up under a road where you need a really strong structural component, but it could end up in a yard or in a landscape area where you don't need as much bearing capacity. So our intent is to reuse it. And again, one of the things Bill's going to talk about is the contractor's been really creative about figuring out how do we reuse the soils that we have on site. And that's created a tremendous amount of savings. And the same approach here, rather than just hauling it off, we actually hauled it over to phase 1, which is on the west end of the site. So rather than hauling it up to Mount Hink, where we might have to haul it back to phase 1, we hauled it to phase 1 with the intent to reuse it in phase 1, trying to save some money on the project.
And then the mining of Mount Hink, have you gotten actually into Mount Hink yet? Because you had a project going where you were putting all of the soils through a screen and all of that. Is that moving through Mount Hink then?
It is, and one of the things that I don't know if my aerial photographs show it up here, they don't. One of the things that we've accomplished is there's 2 parts of Mount Hink. There's the west part of Mount Hink and there's the east part of Mount Hink. And the west part was the one that was on the asphalt. There's a bunch of material stockpiled in the asphalt. And we've essentially burned through all of that, reused it onto the project. We've also mined a tremendous amount out of Mount Hink, screened it and reused it, creating approximately $320,000 of savings on the project. There's still a tremendous amount of material on Mount Hink. And one of the things I've talked about in the past that we're planning to bring forward to the board is a strategy of getting in and figuring out how can we continue this process. We don't need it anymore as part of the waterfront project, so we can't kind of keep working on it. We don't have any funds to do it. But there's opportunity to reuse some of that material in other parts of the project. So we intend to bring that forward, assuming the La Riviere contract gets transferred from the city to Ignite. So there's a couple of more steps that have to happen.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Phil, can you just back up a couple of slides and show us kind of generally where Area 13 is?
Yes. You want it on this one or?
On the ground.
On the ground.
Yeah, as best you can.
Yep. So Area 13 is in this area right in. Let me give you your bearings on this first. I'm going to show you this road here on the ground. So notice that arc. And then when you get on this photograph, you can kind of see that arc here. So Area 13 is in this area right here, kind of this whole area in this. And so the park is over here, and there's a storm sewer line that actually borders Area 13. And just to refresh the board's memory, this is the area that was originally in the first RFP that got no responses. I think it actually might have been the mayor's suggestion that it was originally limited to retail uses, and it got no responses. So retail, hospitality, restaurant type. We went back and amended the PUD, and the Planning Commission agreed that upper level residential would be an appropriate use there with ground level retail. Because you want to they call it activating the ground plane. You want exciting things for people to come walk along the trail, go into the ground level restaurant, have dinner, get out, walk back on the trail. But the upper potential 2 stories, because there's a limited height here, could be residential, whether it's for rent or for sale product. So that parcel, Area 13, along with Area 12, which is this piece here. So Area 12 and Area 13 are currently out for RFP, and they come back in?
I believe the 24th.
24th. Okay. I'll move along, Chairman. So the next,
Yeah, Chairman, this is Brad. I just wanted to say, along with what Steve was pointing out on those pilings, a lot of those pilings are about at the water level, at summer level, and they're pretty hazardous. So I would sure be in favor if there's a little bit of extra money to strategically pull some of those pilings out. Strategically save the ones that could be strategically valuable, and see if we didn't have some money in the budget to get some others out. They're pretty ugly, and I think they're a danger as well as being ugly. Because this is low water and they're sticking up out of the water, but they're pretty close to the water level at summer level.
that's a very good point, and maybe that's the balance we strike as we get closer to the end of the project. And again, assuming that the board authorizes the city to use the balance of the funding, if there's funds left over, we go in, because Commissioner Jordan is right, the ones above the water are not necessarily a gigantic navigational concern because you can actually see them. But when we took some of the board members down here before, when we were navigating the boat through there, that was one of the real challenges. I can't remember which board member it was, but they were actually looking over the bow to make sure we didn't run into any of the ones that were barely beneath the surface. So that's a really good suggestion and maybe a happy medium on the budget.
Thank you.
So moving on, the La Riviere contract transfer topic. This came out of discussions Tony and I have been talking about and, thinking how do we move into the phase one infrastructures. So just to refresh the board again, I'll slip back here. Phase one is this area, and we need to build the infrastructure in order for the developers to be able to, build their houses in there and to get approval for the plat. The contractor, La Riviere, is currently on site, and again, as the board knows, we negotiated some pretty competitive pricing for them when we did the park project. So we started talking about, well, gee, maybe we can extend their contract to include this work up here in the development area. Well, the contract that La Riviere has is currently with the city. So the city would have to agree to transfer the contract, and I think Danielle did some work with Mike Gridley and determined that that could be done. And Mike Gridley took it forward to the city council, but they had several questions about it. And so while I had the opportunity, or we had the opportunity, Tony wanted me to just brief the board on it. So as I said, the city is contracted with La Riviere for the waterfront park. Ignite requested that of the city, but there were questions. The advantages of it is it eliminates the mobilization costs because La Riviere is obviously there, and you guys see the pictures and how much equipment is sitting there. It expedite the infrastructure construction start because literally as soon as we have a permit, we could start working. And again, assuming that the Ignite gets the contract and successfully finishes the negotiations with La Riviere. But early on, when we did the waterfront project negotiations with La Riviere, we felt pretty good about the pricing that we received from them. And the preliminary pricing we've got on phase one, we feel pretty good about that because it's very competitive pricing. And obviously, he's incentivized to stay there because it's easy for him to keep his crews working. So just to be clear, we put this graphic together to show kind of the separation of projects. The green is where the current city waterfront project is with La Riviere. That project wouldn't change. The scope of it, the elements of it, even if the contract is transferred to Ignite, we have a set of construction documents. Bill Greenwood's still in charge of it. He's still going to get it done as the city council has directed him to. If the contract is transferred from the city to Ignite, Ignite would then start negotiating with La Riviere first just on phase one, and that might be the end of it. But depending on how it goes, it could extend into other phases of the project as well. But that's all predicated on a lot of other things first happening. So that was the background for this board. We're going to go back and visit city council next Tuesday and have another discussion with them, and that's Bill Greenwood and I are going to go have that discussion with city council. Glad to answer any questions if there are on that topic.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is Brennan. Phil, what questions, I didn't watch the city council meeting. What were their questions or questions about that?
Mr. Mayor might be able to shed some light on that as well, but they were generally focused on just the uncertainty of why the contract was getting transferred and would the transfer affect the park. I think that was the gist of it, the elements of the park project.
Yeah, there were just questions on, once the contract was transferred over, would there be any changes? And if there were any suggested changes, would that come back to council? And it was focused entirely on the park.
And just to reiterate on that, there, as you guys know, there's a set of construction documents that define what's happening in the park. Any additions to it, Bill's bringing that forward to you today to say, is Ignite willing to fund things like the beach? Would Ignite be willing to fund those things? If we assume that Ignite says, yes, we're willing to fund those things, Bill still is going to go forward to City Council and say, okay, City Council, it's your project. I did get permission from Ignite to use this funding. Now, City Council, would you like us to move forward with it? Because it's the city's park, it's the city's project, and Bill's in charge of it. And that, I think, was the biggest question that occurred at City Council.
Okay.
I would just add that it's our intent, and in fact, Tony requested that we continue to have the city involved in the review of the infrastructure as well. So we would intend to do that with a change order to Tila Rivera's contract in the event that the council approves that. But Tony still wants the city team to be involved in review and inspection and sign off on those construction invoices just because of the expertise.
Agreed.
Okay. Well, at this point, I will turn it over to Bill to talk about that very discussion. Okay?
Thanks, Bill.
Good afternoon, everyone. Fill your glasses.
Yeah.
Last time we were together, we took a nice walk of this property, and you saw all the things that, some of the things that came up within the project and what we've found, these unforeseen conditions. Phil showed you those. And so our question for you is, on these unseen conditions, where I'll show you those slides about what we'd like to use those for. And so the unforeseen conditions were those soils that they were really clay. I don't know if you remember when we walked out there, they were sticking to your shoes. And so that's all the stuff we hogged out. We had some items on some city code triggered things. We were required to install some extra dry wells that we weren't aware of, some nosing on stairs, and we were asked to provide some extra stairs near one of the accesses to the water. So that's that second number. And then our tonnage on the rockery wall increased a little bit. We used a little more. It was a little longer than anticipated, and that's that number 59K. And so with our contingency, we were able to fund these items here. We still have 2697 left over in the contingency. So that's that piece of it. We got real creative in with the way we mined these soils on Mount Hink and what we were able to develop by creating some soil that we're going to blend with quarter green. We pulled out some rock that we used as some backfill stuff, and so we saved a whole bunch of money there. Again, to Tommy, the contractor's credit, he's been very, very creative with some great ideas about how we might save some things, and that's what we'll go through here. So the soil borrow has to do with, we were able to pull those soils out of Mount Hink, and we're going to add the quarter green. He's going to start hauling that quarter green here within the next week or 10 days, I think he said this morning. And so we're talking about that. The screening, it's a neat operation. You all saw some of it, but it's even better today. The way he's got things stockpiled out there is real interesting. There's basalt, there's crushed rock, there's round rock, all the different sizes, and it's an interesting operation that he's doing. And so he's utilizing all of those things within the project. And as Phil said, hopefully some of these other items might be able to be used in the upland piece that's not the park property. So, and this was Tommy's idea on the park storage building, the siding. The metal siding that was proposed by the architect was very expensive. And in fact, it was so expensive that you had to have a special installer install this roofing material and siding. So every time you needed to replace a piece, had to call the special installer. So it drove it up. He said, why can't we just use something that's more common? And we saved some money on changing that. And we got a little delay on that because of the COVID. It's over in Washington, and there's some delay on getting it here, but they told us this morning it might be here within a week and a half. So, and we might see a few more of those sorts of delays because of the COVID, mostly about material. Tommy and his guys are still working hard, but some of our deliveries are a little bit delayed. And then it was Tommy's idea too to change from a pole building to conventional framing, and we saved $20K on that. So with that savings, we'd like to go after, and some of these items down here for the proposed are they were add-alts in the project that weren't awarded. So this is the top one, the pump station. So the pump itself. So that means we're using the river water to irrigate the park instead of domestic. We did, in the plan, have a domestic bypass, so if the pump should ever go down or we don't get it funded, we have a way to still keep the water on the park and keep it green. Here at McEwen, we didn't do that, and we have since fixed that, but when the pumps went down at this park, we had to scramble and connect up some domestic water supplies. This project already has it. And then what that did too is something we didn't capture was when we use water out of the lake or the river or the pond at Riverstone, you have to have purple pipe to designate that it's non-potable water. And so that's this number here that we didn't anticipate rolling into using the pump. We have to buy this purple pipe. The heads themselves, the quick couplers, the heads have got a little purple ring on it that signifies to everybody that it's non-potable water. This one came out because of our walk. So this has to do with the porta potty structure. You all remember as we got down near the end of the property and looked back towards the park, how far the restroom facility was from either end of the park, all the way at the dog park and all the way down at the other end by the grotto. And so we were talking it through, and I thought it wouldn't be a bad idea to put in a porta potty structure so that if folks didn't want to walk all the way to the restroom, they could have a facility. We talked to Tommy about this. He made those bus stop shelters along Celtice out of the timber that he took out of the center when we thinned all of those trees out. He still has some of that wood. And so he's willing to give us a number on developing those as a porta potty structure at either end of the park. It would be near the dog park and down by the grotto. And then we had some chute decking that we didn't anticipate and some ADA signage. The staining of the restrooms came out because we liked the way it looked. If you recall, we changed from a block building to a poured concrete. Well, it was just poured concrete. It didn't look that good. So Tommy's guys suggested, let me stain a piece, and I think you all saw the short wall that they did. And so we, pulled the trigger on that staining so you guys could look at that and say, we like that very much. And so that's what that's from. And in doing that too, the wall that kind of shields the food trucks is getting the same coating. And then obviously you saw the landscape in the beach. We all were down, boots on the ground, and saw how big that piece of the property was and how it needed something else. And so again, Tommy put together a number without the architect. We just did it in-house and talked it through and came up, and that's a pretty good number. It includes the sand on the beach that Board Member Jordan was really interested in. He was talking to me a bunch about that when we were on site. And then, as Phil talked about, was that log boom for 40 to protect the swimmers on that whole swim area. And all those numbers add up to 305, and we still have 15.5 left in the budget. So with all that being said, with all the creativity that was at the table and in the park trying to sort through this stuff, we still are on budget. So we're here to ask you if you think that's a good idea for us to use those funds.
Discussion on the board members, from board members?
Well, this is Brad. I guess the 40,000 for the log boom, that gets you the logs and the pilings and everything, right?
I think what the plan was, yes, to possibly utilize any of the existing that would be suitable for that and to install as necessary, yes.
Yeah, strategically add a few pilings where you need them.
Right.
Well, leaves us a little bit of money left over to pull out some of the broken off pilings.
A little bit. That won't go very far with the number of pilings, but there's a little bit to work with.
Yeah.
This is Olympia. Bill, are these concrete numbers? Are they actual or are these estimated?
These are, well, some of these are real actuals. I mean, these are what we figured out with Tommy on what we actually saved within the project. The only, this is an actual because we know what the pump cost is. This is an actual because we know what the pipe cost is. So to answer your question, yes, most of these are actuals.
So this is Brad again. I guess the proposed items you've got, you really thought that through, and these are pretty important then, all of these. They rise to the top. The irrigation pump station, well, that will pay off, for example.
Right.
Tony, you're looking for board action?
Yes.
If somebody would like, we could, they
I
could
make a motion that we allow for the changes in the budget to be approved as they're being presented here.
Second.
moved and seconded. I'd just like to remind everybody, that's for this savings that Bill just mentioned, and then the use of the contingency money that he had started with, his first discussion.
Correct.
Any further discussion?
I just have one quick question. I don't mean to go around in circles on pulling these old pilings out that are a hazard, but are we going to need a board approval in the future to do that, or can they just work away at doing that with the money they have?
If you would so make that motion now, we could certainly, if there's this left over and we could go that direction, it won't go very far.
Maybe find a little more somewhere.
That would be nice.
Well, if you come up with a number, you can come back to us at our next meeting.
Yeah, at a later date, we could come back when we have maybe a count, because like you were saying, Commissioner Jordan, maybe we find the ones that are the worst.
Tony?
Mr. Chair, maybe I can weigh in on this conversation. So, we're putting together our fiscal year 21 budget for the Lake District. This could be a line item that the board could consider. If we don't have enough funds left over from this project, we could add additional funds next year if the board would so choose. So theoretically, there'll be sufficient funds to deal with the pilings as wished.
Right, because it's going to be outside the project anyway, and we'll have that buttoned up.
Okay, that's a good idea. Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Chairman, maybe either Bill or Phil could answer this question. What is the best time of year if you're going to take those pilings out? Is springtime right now the best time, or, so the best time is to do it now?
Low water,
So
so the fall.
So should we, so spring then, you're saying, Phil, is the best time?
Well, once the water goes down, however that is whenever the water's the lowest, is what I thought.
Yeah, I agree with you. If we can't get it done soon enough and the water comes up, then we should do it in the fall when it goes down again.
Could we possibly get a price and then maybe bring it back to the next board meeting if we still have
Got a number, we just need to
money,
take a
please?
count, I guess, is really what it is. We'll have to go from the shore and we could just count them up, and he's 1.5 apiece?
Yeah, well, he was higher than that, but we can get it.
Okay, we could negotiate with him, okay.
So I guess maybe if we could have a number come back
Okay.
at our meeting next month.
Next board meeting,
Yeah.
okay.
Thank you.
The motion and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, say nay. Thank you, that motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Final item I have under my report is the Ignite CDA Support for Emergency Economic Community Needs discussion. As you recall, we discussed this issue at our last board meeting and kind of tabled the conversation to kind of let the community seek to better understand what kind of resources were going to be coming the community's way. And we've seen some of those opportunities starting to come to fruition. I don't think everybody understands completely how they're all going to work and kind of the timetables. So once again, this is an agenda item for the board's discussion. Should they want to have any further conversation on this today, if they want to continue the conversation to a later date, it's up to the board to decide what to do at this time.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add that the city has been awarded almost $200,000 in community block development grant funds, specifically for COVID-related relief items. And I know our Renata McLeod is spearheading that effort, along with Hillary Anderson and our community block development person, to seek out the nonprofits in our community. So there is $200,000 that's available specifically for those relief efforts.
Discussion from board members?
This is Brad. I guess all I would say is I think we still don't know exactly how much aid and what kind of aid there is. There's all kinds of federal aid that's supposed to be out there. So hopefully the city has someone looking at all the options there are to try and get our share of the federal aid. I don't know at this point if it's something we should commit urban renewal dollars into. Just saying.
Yeah, this is Brennan. I think I agree on waiting to see how things settle in and if there's a clear and obvious gap that we could fill for economic development that's aligned with our mandate and scope. But, you know, in the absence of having that clarity, I think we should wait.
Okay,
I agree.
good
I
idea.
agree.
Sounds like we'll table it for now then, Tony, but keep that money in the back pocket, ready to help when needed.
Okay.
Tony, sorry, this is Brennan. Can we just keep it as a standing item since we meet once a month and so much changes, just in case, just so we remind ourselves to revisit this?
Yes, I'll keep it as a standing item on the agenda.
Thanks, Brennan.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All righty. Next on the agenda is board commissioner comments. Hearing none, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 We're adjourned, and that's a wrap.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Stay well. Thank you.
Yeah.
Be safe.